Now, like it or not, artificial intelligence has become the defining technology of our era, and it's also filtering into education, with AI and robotics rapidly becoming the norm for students. Will AI replace teachers in schools? We ask who or what is going to teach our children in the future. I'm Stefanie Dekker, and this is The Stream.
I need to study for an exam tomorrow on my social psychology class.
What specific topic or concept are you focusing on for this exam?
Many concepts, but let's start with one that I'm really not understanding. It's on cognitive dissonance.
Okay, cognitive dissonance is when you feel kinda uncomfortable because your actions don't really match up with your beliefs. Imagine you have two puzzle pieces that don't fit together. That's like your brain when you believe one thing but do another.
Now, this is about more than just talking to ChatGPT about your problems. This is about trusting the information provided by AI. Now, many students and teachers rely on it for an essay task or a math problem, but we've only had this kind of technology for a couple of years. On this episode, we're going to discuss what it would look like when AI inevitably becomes a part of daily life for students from university all the way down to, well, what age is too young? To discuss all of this and more, we have Angelica Georges. She's a content creator on education and technology, and she joins us from just next door from Dubai. Miranda is a doctoral student at the Uppsala Social Robotics Lab at Uppsala University in Sweden. And Conrad Hughes, he's the Director General of the International School of Geneva and a Senior Fellow at UNESCO's International Bureau of Education. And he's joining us from Geneva. Thank you so much for joining us on the stream. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Lux, I'm going to start with you because I don't think our viewers see yet that you are not alone. We actually have 4 guests on this show. Can you tell me a little bit about your companion? This is, from what I understand, a robot who's used in education. And if you can ask him or her, or I'm not quite sure how to address it, what its main benefits are.
Yeah, so this is a social robot, which is just a kind of robot that you can think of it as doing social labor rather than physical labor. It doesn't have any arms, it can't move around. It's just a head that sits on a table that you can talk to. And it's mostly a research model at the moment, but a lot of research is going into how to have robots quite like this in classrooms, for example, and in other educational contexts. And what do you think is one of the main benefits of being able to have a robot like you in the classroom?
One of the main benefits of robots like me in education is that we can provide a lot of individualized attention to students who may need additional assistance.
There you have it.
Impressive. This is the future. It's here to stay. And how concerned should we be? Angelica, I want to move to you. You are trying to stay up to date, I guess, what is a daily update when it comes to artificial intelligence, particularly in the field of education. Give us, to us people who aren't as connected and informed as you, how fast is it moving? And give me like the top 3 benefits you would say that it brings to students.
How fast it's moving, I think that it is constantly changing every single year. I think that new students that are coming in are going to see big changes, especially university students, in the way that their learning experience is going to play out over the next few years. Whereas the people that just graduated, for example, it's completely different because we didn't have this when we just started university or any time before that. So it is going to be changing nonstop. I think that's my opinion. And the top 3 benefits, I think, is just enhancing your learning experience by allowing you to use it for different things that would take too much of your time otherwise, not replacing it, not replacing what you need to do as homework assignments, but just enhancing that by allowing it to do the things that would be too time consuming. Another benefit would probably be allowing it to make schedules for you and to plan out your week, your study schedules, and allowing it to make your time more packed with learning rather than packed with other things that could potentially be taking your time. Just making schedules for you, for your life, and for school as well. And a third benefit, I would say, would maybe be helping you come up with deeper understandings of what you're studying. So allowing it to explain to you things in a different perspective that you'd never think about, and also allowing it to show you new ways to learn the material that you're learning.
Conrad, I want to move to you. You are an educator, you've been a teacher in the classroom, you're also part of UNESCO's International Bureau of Education. You are also a parent. So there are so many levels of interest, that questions I want to ask you. But I guess basically, are you excited about these developments or are you wary?
I'm excited. Artificial intelligence and technology in general is where our thinking should start and not where it should end. Schools cannot be places where we're preventing young people from growing up with technology. It's all about us. And schools are very far behind, starting with the assessment system that we have at the end of high school. In that clip you were showing earlier, a student was screening multiple choice questions. Well, right there you have lower order thinking, knowledge testing, which is part, but not enough, of what it means to be an educated person in the 21st century.
It's almost like you have to get on board with artificial intelligence because we have no choice. It's here. So students need to be educated in its language as well.
Well, that's an interesting question. You know, from 2019 to the present, we've gone from the equivalent intelligence, without going into what intelligence is, because that's a bit of a rabbit hole, of a preschooler up to a sort of PhD engineer. And the forecasts are that by 2030, we're going to be at agentic, autonomous co-workers. So the rate of change and that exponential development of AI in itself is something we need to prepare for. A couple of years ago, everyone was saying children should learn code, but you don't need code anymore. You can use natural language because of artificial intelligence. So what we need to be really is future fit, ready for change. And the irony is that a lot of what that does is actually drives you back to some basics about what it means to be human that you find in subjects like philosophy, critical discernment, ethics, creative thinking, innovative thinking. This is what we need to drive rather than narrow technical skills, because those technical skills are going to evolve at and be outsourced at a pace that we can't really fathom. So that whole paradigm is what we have to educate for.
It's like our civilization is at a turning point. It, of course, comes with concerns. Let me just go to a video we want to play. One of the concerns that's being raised is, will it make us dumber? We don't go to school only to learn our ABCs, but education also provides the necessary tools for critical thinking. If we're copy-pasting what AI tells us without researching and coming to our own conclusions, what is going to happen to our brain?
All of these AI tools that are coming out now are going to be incredibly powerful, but they're going to have a downside. An awful lot of people are going to get caught up in the hype, and they're not going to tell you that there's going to be compromises. Socrates talked about this with the powerful innovation of writing. He said that it was a bad thing because it would teach us to stop using our memories, which eventually we would lose. And he, of course, was correct with this. We developed in writing the capacity to establish this long-term memory in our civilizations, but we lost the old poets who used to develop these entire novels inside of their head that they could recite like a book. We don't have people who can do that stuff anymore because we have these stacks of paper lying around that do it for us. We lost that capacity. AI art is going to do something similar. All these AI tools like ChatGPT and all this stuff, they're going to have this effect. They're going to change the way that we interact with our own minds, and certain parts of ourselves might get dampened. Maybe even our creative parts if we're not careful. So we should always be vigilant.
Angelica, let me put that to you. Do you agree? Do you think it's dumbing us down?
I think in certain aspects, it's going to definitely replace some of our creativity and other things like such. But at the end of the day, I'm talking from a student perspective, let's say, going to exams, doing your presentations in school, things like this cannot be replaced by AI. So I don't think that it's making you dumber per se, but I do think that it's going to replace some things and make it eventually so that you can either use it to become better at those things, or you can use it to completely replace what you should be using as your own creativity. But at the end of the day, the reality of it is it will never replace you being on the exam or you being at the presentation on the day of and doing it yourself. So in my opinion, no, you will still need to have your own skill set.
Okay, Lux, you are researching this. You have, a prototype there, a robot that you have already taken into the classroom. I want to ask you about age. Obviously, the older you are as a student, whether you're at university, you're at high school, we're mentioning kindergarten. Is there a too young age to introduce AI? Or as Conrad said, we are already on, let's say, it's beyond a spaceship at this point. How young is too young? And is there too young? Because this is the era that we're in now.
I think that question is a bit like asking how young is too young to start teaching children math, for example, or start teaching them how to use a computer. In the research field that I work in, we do see quite a lot of work going into educational robots for all age ranges, from, as you said, university sort of PhD level education, even all the way down to the youngest ages that can even sort of interact with the world and speak. And I sort of agree with the point that this is kind of the shape that our society is going to continue to take. And so it's important that our technologies are able to accommodate all age ranges, and that we kind of learn and teach our young how to interact with this in healthy ways from the very start.
Okay, well, we actually did our own little test with OpenAI's ChatGPT. Of course we did. It's an AI show. And we pretended to be a parent in the prompt and asked about the dangers of implementing AI in schools. And the biggest issue it raised was privacy and data security. It said, if AI systems are processing sensitive personal information, such as student names, locations, or behaviors, there is a risk that this data could be misused or exposed in a data breach. And it's not only AI itself who is worried about that. According to a study done by Immuta, an American data security platform, 80% of data experts worry that AI is making data security more challenging. AI tools and chatbots are rapidly being used in almost every part of the modern world. And how are we going to make sure sensitive information stays private, especially for children? Conrad, I'm going to put this question to you. It's a hard one, I know, but it's something we should be concerned about?
Oh, yeah. Look, we've moved from knowledge generation to knowledge curation. So schools are places where we get together and we critique, we understand, we discuss, and we learn about knowledge. Now, the knowledge is being generated differently, and there's artificial intelligence generating some of that knowledge. So it's the role of adults, of educators, of pedagogues to create these discussions where there's a richer understanding of the nature of and the risks of artificial intelligence. Not just what you can do with it, but what it is.
Is it controllable?
Look, I don't think so. And I think that this, data protection became an issue before the explosion of artificial intelligence. Our data is being given out all the time. You look at digital footprints, they're huge, and it's something I think we're going to have to get used to. It behooves big tech companies to ensure that they've got guardrails and security measures. But the whole notion of private data has been threatened by this, and so I think we need to reflect on that and work around it. And be aware of it. You need to make young people stronger in knowing what they're entering and what some of the limitations, the pitfalls, the dangers, the risks are. Now, that's really the job of education, is to prepare you for the world. And that's what the world's looking like right now.
I think it's interesting when you were talking about how it wasn't controllable. Lux and Angelica, you both started nodding profusely. Lux, are there regulations to keep checks and balances? You are working on a robot. Is there a danger that down the line, suddenly the robot is going to tell you, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't feel like it. I'm going to do this.
Well, yeah, I data security and privacy and everything is a super, super important issue. And I think a thing that we've really seen, and this hasn't been anything new really, is that the rate of technological progress, especially from tech companies, is far exceeding the rate of legislation from governing bodies. The EU is doing a pretty fairly good job so far with things like the GDPR and the AI Act, trying to stay on top of this kind of thing. Of course, there's not perfect legislation, but it's a lot better than nothing, essentially. And so this is always something that's very, very much at the top of my mind when I'm considering applications, or whenever we put a robot into any kind of context. Like, okay, is someone going to tell this robot very sensitive information? How do we take care of that? How do we treat that in a way that sort of respects their autonomy and their privacy and the right that they have to their own data?
Because you brought the robot, from what I understand, into a classroom. You did introduce it to young children. Can you just give us a sense of how old the kids were and how did they react? I mean, it must have been, even I'm excited to see it on the show, so it's something quite special.
Yeah, I mean, so that was a recent study that I did. It was with 9 to 12-year-olds. I just brought it to a local international school and basically had it teach a lesson. And I was examining a few different things. I was sort of experimenting, kind of playing with different aspects of how the robot presented itself and understanding how the children responded. But by and large, most of them were quite curious. They were very eager to engage with this new sort of sci-fi thing that they'd never really seen with or interacted with before. One or two of them were maybe a little bit scared at first, but once they kind of saw the robot and saw that it just sits there, it's not going to hurt them, then they were fairly okay with it. And in that instance, we didn't do any sort of data collection on the robot side itself.
Angelica, you're very much across, you have millions of followers, educating them about how AI is moving, particularly in the field of education. Do you get a sense from those who follow you? Are they excited? Are they concerned? Is there a debate that you have? What is the pulse that you feel from people that follow you, learning about, you know, what you're teaching them?
Definitely mixed reactions on AI. I hear a lot of people really benefit from the content that I produce when it comes to giving them tips on how to interact with ChatGPT and other AI tools. That I definitely work with a lot of different brands and companies that are AI. These days, I think it's all I work with. And I think there's mixed reactions in the comments all the time from people that are concerned, for one, and from people that are really benefiting from the tips that I give. Now, I want to really be clear that I never want to share or come up with ideas that have anything to do with replacing your assignments or writing them, things like this. But I always share ways that it can enhance your learning experience, like I said earlier. And so in that regard, I don't think that I'm not getting a lot of concerns, because I'm really just giving them a way to make it better. But there are definitely comments sometimes telling me that this is going to make you dumber, or this is going to hinder your learning. I don't know. I hear a lot of different comments, and usually it's from older people, maybe parents. I'm not sure who they are, but usually it's not from people that are in high school, or maybe not in university, maybe in university, but definitely not those that are younger. So it's usually the older the follower is, the more concerned they get. That's what I feel.
It's so alien to us older generations. I still remember being at school using the most basic of tools. I mean, not that far, but still, Conrad. So AI, is it in the user's hands? Like how much you use it to cheat, how much you use it to benefit, but still keep your critical thinking. Is it down to the individual, or is even that moving too fast that somehow they're just going to be swept away by using it all the time in the future because it is so useful to save time, etc.?
Educators have to understand that they can't control what young people are going to be doing outside of the classroom. So we have to design assessments that are future ready. And if you are creating tests that you can cheat on using artificial intelligence, first of all, what kind of of real intelligence are you actually testing? And secondly, what are you doing about it? I mean, I've written a book about reforming assessment, and this is actually where I think the real problem is. Schools need to change what we're assessing. We need to be looking at competences, at attitudes, at skills, as well as knowledge. We need to be looking at things like lifelong learning, self-agency, how you interact with diverse tools and resources. We can't carry on putting millions of children through this narrow, high-stakes testing environment where it's essentially knowledge regurgitation. That's the model of the 19th century. So that's one thing we have to think about. And I think from a student's perspective, or anyone who's living in this environment, the big question is, how do I stand out? The world has become saturated by AI, but there's something quite wooden and maybe not predictable, and it's going to get more sophisticated. But you know, there are cliches and sort of standard configurations that are coming out of all of these semantic scrapings that are using the World Wide Web. So what makes me different? How do I stand out? We were talking
Conrad, I'm
about
going to jump in
when
because we're running out of time and I still have so many questions. Just briefly, in terms of the difference of education, like, you know, okay, the developed world where there's money, the kids are going to have much more access. If you go to the less developed world, poverty, like, they're not going to have, so you're going to, again, exacerbate the difference. Are you not? Is this something that's a concern? Just briefly.
The digital divide is a concern, and we saw it in COVID, and it's going to get bigger.
Ethics. I want to move to you, Lux. Ethics. When you're looking at robots, is this a challenge? I know it's a very quick question on a very difficult subject.
Yes, I mean, as with any new technology that we've seen before, the people who stand to benefit most are the people who already have the power to implement it. And if anything, this kind of thing is only going to amplify existing disparities. And so we have to be really careful as we approach it to kind of be aware of this phenomenon and think, okay, how can we maybe democratize this a little bit more? How can we maybe use this as a means of increasing access and increasing equality globally, rather than just as yet another way in which the rich countries are able to have an advantage and increase their wealth and so on and so forth.
Angelica, just final thoughts from you, just quickly, your message to the young generation and your message to the older generation about AI in general.
I agree with what they both said. Honestly, for the older generation, I think give it a chance. Teach students, teach your kids how to use it properly and how to be aware of what's going on. And for the younger generation to not replace school with AI, but to enhance it using AI.
Conrad, I'm going to finish with you. Are we in a changing era? Is this, in terms of our civilization, how would you describe it? Because things are moving so fast, it's so difficult to keep up on so many different ways. I was in a course the other day and the professor told us that, you know, after I finish here, I need to update myself because AI is being updated every single day. How would you describe what is facing all of us?
We're in an age of exponentials and of rapid cycles of disruption that are increasingly rapid and pertinent. You're in the eye of the storm. Be calm, be yourself, be creative, be critical, be ethical. The fundaments of education haven't changed, and I don't think they will. There's a lot of noise out there as well. I don't think fear is the way to go. What will you get out of fear? We have to embrace this and own it. Don't just be victims of change. Make the change you want to see in the world. That's my message to Gen Z and Gen Alpha and all those young folks out there. Don't just stare at your phone and be entertained. Get out there and create something.
There's still a beautiful world out there, which I think we have to remind everyone too, right? I love the mountains. Like we've got to balance. We've got to balance things. I have to end it here. It's been a fascinating discussion. Well, it's been an eye-opening discussion. Angelica, Lux, and Conrad, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for tuning in. If you have a comment about our show, talk to us on social media. This is also your show. And we're always open to your suggestions. Use the hashtag or the handle AJStream, and we will look into it. Thanks for being part of the conversation, and I'll see you soon.